Hey, well, welcome everyone. We're thrilled that you're here today. I'm here with Pastor Filipe, and we're going to continue to unpack things together as he just came off the stage just a few minutes ago from his message, just so we can take the contents that we're learning about the series, about the message, and take it deeper and further into our lives. So thanks for being here. Welcome back from Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. Well, I want to start off actually just because one, I know there's a lot that you were doing in your message and you were sharing with us. And I often ask, what's something that's been in your heart you wish you had time to preach, but you didn't because of time? What didn't make it on the stage from your page? But I know there's a lot even from your trip. You just came back from the Holy Land.
Yeah.
So what are some things from that, things that you wish you had time to share that you want to share with our people today?
Oh man, there's so much. One thing is, if you haven't been to Israel yet, we're starting to do these trips every year, and go to it because it was so life-changing to be there and tangibly see and experience the places where Jesus walked. There were a lot of meaningful experiences there. One of them was probably my favorite of all of it was being in Capernaum. And this is the place that Jesus called home. And a lot of people don't know this, but if you read the scripture, it says like he went back, when he says he went back home, he went to Capernaum.
Yeah.
And Capernaum is by the Sea of Galilee. And it's this like beautiful little beach town, kind of like Santa Cruz, but not Santa Cruz. And there's a synagogue that they unearthed that was like the only synagogue in the city. And it actually said in the scripture, it says that Jesus would teach often every Sabbath in the synagogue in Capernaum. So it was like definitely that synagogue. And there's like they unearthed all the homes around the synagogue, so you could see where Jesus did life, and like where I could picture him like playing with the kids in the courtyard. And there's all these different homes around that they unearthed, and like where the hallways were and the little aisles of between the homes. And then Jesus, you can go to the temple, literally like stand there where he used to teach the people from in this little synagogue. And it was just so personal to be there and to feel it. And it's actually right near where he did the Sermon on the Mount. It's near where he like recommissioned Peter after Peter had gone back fishing. He had gone back to Capernaum, and Jesus said, "Hey, feed my sheep." And do you love me, Peter? It was right there. So it was just so beautiful to be in that place where Jesus loved on people himself and taught, and and it's also, you can also go to, that's the city where Peter's mother-in-law was sick with fever, and Jesus went and healed his wife's mom. And the thing that was beautiful about that is, sometimes you think of the sacrifice of the disciples following Jesus, and you wonder, what about their wives and their families? And I just love the fact that Jesus knew the sacrifice of the family, and in this moment where Peter's mother-in-law was sick, he took the time to go to their home. And you can go to, they believe they know exactly where that home was, and you can actually go there and picture like Jesus loving on his mother-in-law and then he healed her, and then she cooks him a meal, so you can like even see the little kitchen area of the home. It's amazing to be there.
What's the impact on your faith to be able to? I'm trying to like make the correlation between being there physically. What does that do to your spiritual faith? Like to actually see the physical representation of it.
Yeah. It just makes it undeniable that all this happened. In fact, the guide that was with us was a Jewish man who was on the journey, and he said in doing all these tours and showing people that, I mean, you can't deny that Jesus was there. Not just the biblical, the gospel writers wrote about it, but Josephus and these historians wrote about the things Jesus did in that town. And he told me, he's like, in telling people and showing them all these places Jesus went, I can't help but believe. And so even himself growing up Jewish and his family denying that Jesus was a Messiah, he's like, I can't deny that there's evidence everywhere in this region of his impact in society. So that's what it did to me. It just made it even more tangible, and it made me very grateful for all that happened there. And then when I read the scriptures now, people say that the way people often say it is that it brought color to the pages, right? So like before it's black and white, and when you see it, you're in the Garden of Gethsemane, and then there's like a valley and on the other side is Mount Moriah, which is where Abraham almost sacrificed his son. And so when Jesus is there, he's literally looking at the mountain where it was prophesied he would die on. So when he's, praying, tears that were like drops of blood, he could see the mountain where they would carry him to the cross. So all these connections that you don't see when you're just reading the Bible, it just makes it so real. And it was life-changing.
That's awesome. Connecting it back to what we're talking about with One Life and with Here for Good. Today, your message was about the one life, like the being for the one.
Yeah.
And all of us being called to a mission. And I just want to hear sometimes it's so broad, this idea of being on mission as a church.
Yeah.
And we see these big church plants being started, and we see all these big, bold things that people are doing. But for the average person that's watching, the average person that's attending our church, what are some ways in which they can apply that? What does it mean for them to live for that one life?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because it's true. You look at, even we say we're here to transform the Bay Area. There's 9 million people in the Bay.
Yeah.
And you think of that and you're like, this is too big for me to comprehend. What do I do then? And I always remember this little story I heard years ago that you've probably heard before, where there's a little kid that goes to the beach, and it was one of those days that the waves brought to the sand a bunch of the starfish. There were like hundreds of thousands of them all over the shore, and they're dying in the sun. They're baking in the sun, and this little kid goes and he's having a hard time, picturing all these starfish dying. So he grabs one and he starts throwing it back into the water. His dad comes. He says, "Son, what are you doing? There's hundreds of thousands of these. You're never gonna save them all." And the little kid says, "Well, I can save this one, and I can save this one, and I can save this one." And he throws it one at a time. Sometimes when we see the magnitude, we're like, we get paralyzed, and we just forget, well, do for one. Do for one what you wish you could do for all. Like, love your neighbor. Like, go reach across the cubicle to your coworker and, share something with somebody. Like, be intentional with those around us. If we all do that, then we can reach the many. So it's just loving people right around us is the beginning of the journey. So don't wait to find the big solution that will change millions of lives. Change the one. Like, that's the one that is lost and broken right in front of us. Sometimes it's a family member. Sometimes it's someone that you're just like walking your dog and they're right there and the Lord's giving you an opportunity to share. Or like the story I shared on stage today. It's like my mom right there in that moment, the guy's breathing his last breath, and you're leveraging every moment you have of those in front of you. That one in front of you matters to God. Yeah. So the waiter at the restaurant that's messing up your order, they matter to God. And so how can you love them deeply to maybe point them to something greater than himself in that moment? So one at a time. Don't get paralyzed with the many. Just do what you can with what's in front of you.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys are encouraged. I hope you're able to take some of this a little bit deeper into your life and apply it today. And we'll see you again next week for part 3 of Here for Good, as we're going to talk about how we're for the next generation. So we'll see you next time.